You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Episode 266 of the Week in Review on the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker is on the air. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. How are we doing, Ed?
Doing quite well, Taylor. First and foremost, happy Memorial Day to you. Happy Memorial Day to all the listeners out there. Special, of course, the main important reason of this day, Memorial Day, to all the veterans, all armed services all around this country and around the world that continue to protect, and in some cases have paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect our lives and our freedoms as American citizens. So special shout out to them on this day, not just this day, but every single other day, but more importantly, especially on this type of day as well.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive into a lot of Tigers this week, as usual, every week, plus a little bit of Pistons news, couple Pistons notes here. Then we'll transition to college basketball and talk a little bit about Michigan Wolverines men's basketball, and then transition to Michigan football and talk a serious news note, a serious topic involving Brandon Jacobs, former San Francisco 49er, and Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the Michigan football Wolverines. Then a couple Lions notes, one Red Wings note, and then I will recap the Griffins finishing off the San Jose Barracuda. So, it's Tigers time, folks.
That one is long gone!
Tigers lose 3-4 to the Houston Astros, 1-0, 5-2. They win 6-3, and then 7-6. And then they go to Chicago and lose 3-4 again, 8-2 Friday. Game 3, 3-0 in a game where Brad Ausmus started Tyler Collins in right field over J.D. Martinez in Game 1. I understand it's a doubleheader, but...
Are you out of your mind?
And Tyler Collins, by the way, has been absolutely pathetic, getting a lot worse right before he was designated for assignment.
You are pathetic! I think they're overdue if you listen to some fans. All overdue.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And then Buck Farmer, in Game 2 of the doubleheader, struck out 11 Chicago White Sox batters. And that's got to be an accomplishment since he was just recently called up. He was a starting pitcher, and he struck out 11, gave up only 3, only walked 2, and got the win.
I guess you could say that is a little bit surprising because, if anybody's listened to some previous episodes, we, particularly you in particular, Taylor, have been a little bit hard on Buck Farmer. Some of it for good reason. So I'm sure this is a little bit of a surprise to see him notch in this type of performance. Could it be an anomaly? That's yet to be seen, but it was at least one beacon of one ray of light in a week filled with absolute darkness and shittiness.
Yeah, I know. And then Sunday they lose 7-3. But prior to that, they DFA Tyler Collins. And let's get to that for a second.
Yeah.
DFAing a player normally is kind of in relation to the same thing as just cutting a player loose for nothing. I mean, the Tigers are trying to manage their payroll as best they can. But at the same time, when they designate Tyler Collins for assignment, it just makes us wait longer before they completely get rid of him.
Yeah, basically, I think it's a waiver process. It's similar to a waiver process, correct?
Yeah, because it's more similar to a waiver process than releasing him in our eyes, because when you DFA him, which is similar to put him on waivers, nobody will claim Tyler Collins unless they are willing to send him down to like a minor league affiliate, like either a AAA or AA or single A or Class A, whichever they prefer, whichever they think is right for Tyler Collins, for example. And I believe that's what might happen. We never know, but something's got to give.
Well, this is his fourth season with the team, and he's only had a total of 13 homers and 56 RBIs. Slash line, not really competitive, not impressive at all. It's really pathetic. He's got 239, 303, 384 slash line. Absolutely dreadful in terms of no matter how you look at it. And it's...
Yeah, he's like a rotten smashed apple.
They're trying to give him a chance to put up the outfield carousel, but at some point, when you see that how much of a job that before he got hurt that Jacoby Jones was doing, and yet Tyler Collins is getting all these chances, it just boggles the mind.
Here's why Brad Ausmus keeps deciding to play Tyler Collins like every game until Game 2 and Sunday. Because Brad Ausmus still thinks Tyler Collins is his best player in the outfield, no matter what. And if Brad Ausmus was trying to be desperate, he was only trying to be desperate just for Tyler Collins, because he was starting Tyler Collins for J.D. Martinez in right field prior to Game 1 in the starting lineup, which I think was the most atrocious and yet the stupidest decision with the starting lineup that Brad Ausmus has ever made.
Are you out of your mind?
That he spent most of this season placing a relegated corpse of Victor Martinez in the cleanup spot almost every damn day. So that's got to be a special level of stupidity for him to foresee and overlap that.
Severely stupid to everybody, and that's so evident that even more and more people are getting really antsy about the fact that Tyler Collins keeps playing and keeps playing terribly. And it just irritates the entire Tigers fan base.
Yeah, it's giving them back flashes of what you saw back in the day of Brandon Inge, Ryan Rayburn, and some of Don Kelly as well. So you're thinking to yourself, it's 2017. I thought we were moved past that shit enough already. But no, Ausmus continues to further prove us wrong, and at the same time continues to enrage us. It's a systemic problem that appears to be not going away anytime soon, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Tyler Collins proved to be worse than Brandon Inge and worse than Ryan Rayburn and worse than Don Kelly. And even flipped the bird last year. To sum it all up, Tyler Collins is a huge pile of cow dung.
Oh.
A huge pile of cow shit is Tyler Collins. No bones about it.
I think cow shit could hit better than him.
Yeah. So, the Tigers now stand at 23-27, mostly because of that. They are now in 4th place in the American League Central Division and tied for 11th in the American League with the Toronto Blue Jays.
In addition to that, they've also lost 8 out of their last 11 games. I think you mentioned 4 games under 500. And in terms of their offense, I'm looking at it right now, the ESPN stat line. Most, if not all, of their offensive stats are essentially in the bottom half of the whole league. So when you're in the bottom half, you know you're in deep trouble. Slugging percentage at ranked 20th, bat average ranked 22nd. It is quite nauseating to look at. You would think a team with this kind of payroll and the players that you have, a Miguel Cabrera, J.D. Martinez, a Justin Upton, Justin Verlander, so on and so forth, you would think, hey, this division's not that good. Maybe Cleveland will have a little bit of an off year. If you manage the right pieces, you could probably, at no worse, possibly aim for a second wild card spot. But now it's looking like you may not even make it to the fucking All-Star break before blowing the whole thing up.
Yeah, and let's get to the schedule for a second. Brad Ausmus is calling the schedule awful for some reason.
You're just a crybaby, a coward.
And this leads to us believing that Brad Ausmus is such a crybaby, and he just whines about the schedule, and he just wants to protect all his players no matter what. Brad Ausmus is just another soft piece of dung.
He's an inept shithead, okay, that came in his job way in over his head, didn't know what the hell he was doing. First and foremost, I don't know what either ownership or Dombrowski was thinking, hiring this idiot to begin with, when you know this is his first ever high-profile manager job. Okay, forget about the World Baseball Classic. That's Skittles compared to what he's getting himself into here. And I'm surprised they didn't fire him after the first year when, for goodness sakes, he had himself a rotation that included 3 Cy Young winners and a future Cy Young winner in Rick Porcello, and yet they couldn't win one fucking playoff game. He mismanages, and this goes back to even, to Joaquin Soria, mismanaging bullpen, mismanaging closer role, obviously mismanaging his lineups. Here, then I think he could argue that at any point that Leland might have, any type of criticism that Jim Leland might have gotten for managing his for his lineups, I'm pretty sure that Jim Leland on the worst day can put a lineup. Well, I take that back because 2009 has a real stinker, so it's neck and neck. But with Ausmus, it's almost on a constant daily basis now. It's beyond aggravating, and in my opinion, should be accelerating the process of when his ass should be fired, not brought back, but just outright fired before the end of this year, I would hope.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not been a good year. It's not been a good tenure period ever since we were retired. Now we got to deal with this. It's just miserable almost once. It feels like a chore. It should not feel like a chore to me to watch my favorite baseball team when I know they they have potential to be better than where they are right now. But that's where we're at right
now. I'm having Michigan Wolverine fans troll me. I think they're pieces of shit right now, but we'll get to Michigan Wolverines football later on, I promise. But speaking of the upcoming schedule,
and speaking of the schedule, if he wants to whine and bitch, complain about it, it's called Welcome to the Big Leagues, Brad. There's a 152-game schedule. You're eventually going to play everybody in this damn league, sometimes more than once. It is what it is. Put on your big boy pants, deal with it the best way you can, and shut up. Otherwise, start filling out your resume because you may be gone very soon.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I was going to mention the Tigers go to Kansas City for 3 Monday through Wednesday, 7:15 Memorial Day special time, 8:15 and then 2:15, and then they got Thursday off. Then they host the White Sox at Comerica Park, 7:10, 4:10, and 1:10. They start a 6-game. They start a 6-game homestand. So, fucking cunts. I'm sorry. I'm letting my anger get the best of me. I'm getting distracted here. I should just.
All right, so we'll get to the other topics when it's time.
Yeah, but we wanted to. But you mentioned the Tigers will be open to training all veterans if they are still under the 500 mark at the end of June. And that's going to be one of our 5 questions. It's a wait and see approach, but we can at least make a prediction to answer one of those 5 questions involving that. Ian Kinsler on the 10-day disabled list with a left hamstring strain. James McCann on the 10-day disabled list with a left hand laceration after getting hit by a pitch on Thursday night against the Houston Astros. But their numbers have been offensive. Their offensive numbers have been lower than we imagined and expected. But this is just part of most of the Tigers' offense that has not done well.
No, I mean, what better indictment, so to speak, this past weekend when Tyler Danish, you can't score a run on Tyler Danish, and Miguel Gonzalez, you let him throw 7 innings of perfect baseball on you. You are pathetic!
Boy. Oh my God. Yeah. Tigers hitters seemed, for some reason, to take the bad pitchers for granted and start being lazy and taking them for granted, and all of a sudden, karma bites them right in the asses, and they start playing poorly, and they don't even score a run against Tyler Danish.
Well, it's always.
Plus, they play inconsistently.
It's always been
as usual.
It's always been like this, like for numbers of years now. Especially when there was a big game or something where you needed to win the catch in the pennant chase race or whatever. The matchup was a subpar pitcher with a subpar resume, and then somehow make him look like the next Sun with your hitting display. It was embarrassing to watch out, and it's embarrassing to see that this is still continuing.
Mm-hmm.
So it is at least some type of change. I'm not talking 1 or neutral or what. Something's got to be done here because this will not do.
Uh-huh. So, that's Tigers talk. So, we're going to dive into some Pistons here.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
The Pistons have made their return officially to their older flagship radio station, 97.1 The Ticket. They were previously on 105.1 The Bounce, formerly known as Detroit Sports 105.1. We all know when it was Detroit Sports 105.1 and it had ratings of less than 1.0. And then when it shifted to 105.1 The Bounce, the ratings took off, and then they decreased again, back down to 3.0 at least, and change. That's what I recently checked on. But the Pistons have made their decision to move back to 97.1 in Southfield from Ferndale, because 105.1 The Bounce is just looking for some more ratings, maybe just to play more of its hip-hop and R&B music. So that's out of the question. And
also I think this makes sense in a way, since you need, I'm sure the 97.1 doesn't necessarily need a big replacement because they got the Tigers, but with the Tigers struggling out there, it's going to affect them in some ways. So they need the type of, the Lions are not going to come back to them anytime soon. So they need some type of replacement between the Tigers and Red Wings doing so horribly. So you feel maybe with the Pistons here, you can do something at least. It's one of the big four teams. It's obviously coincide with the team going back to Detroit, new logo, new look, all that. So it's trying to keep up with the theme of new changes and all that.
Yep. And then before, and we apologize for missing that, they previously stayed with the 12th overall pick in the 2017 NBA Draft Lottery, so they're going to have to make the most of it.
Yeah, they had a high percentage chance of ending up with that lottery pick anyway, and it proved to be true. Now, what I'm wondering is, considering on who or which teams might not be making any deals up to or even on draft night, I wonder if there's any type of realm of possibility that the Pistons might be looking to pursue any type of trade offers, whether it be flipping picks or adding players to those set picks, as well as future picks like next year or 2 years down the road, some of that type of deal. So that'll be one plot line I would keep my eye on, in my opinion. I haven't heard Stan Anthony come out right and say, no, we're not going to be doing any trades or any of that like Russell we got. I haven't heard him say any of that to my knowledge. So, remember, if this was a team that was seriously considering offers, listening to all the Andre Drummond for the trade deadline this past season, what makes you think they aren't going to all of a sudden sweep that under the rug for this offseason? It's just, again, not so much of a dead subject, but I would keep my eye on that one.
Yep. Then we transition to college basketball.
For 3, yes, sir.
Couple quick notes on the Michigan Wolverines men's basketball roster. Moe Wagner withdraws from the NBA draft and returns for his junior year, and DJ Wilson will stay in the NBA draft. So the Wolverines get at least one player back.
Yeah, I guess you could say it was a trade-off, bittersweet type of deal. We do get Wagner back, which I think is good for him because I think he may not be quite NBA ready yet. I think it's safe to say Wilson spent I can understand him staying in the draft and why Wagner came back. Selfishly, right, you would have loved to see both come back because remember, this was a team that was a Derek Walton jump shot away from going to the Elite Eight. So they had those two players, not to mention the grad transfer, Jordan Simpson, I believe, from the Ohio Bobcats. You figure that in, you would have found, hey, this is a good chance. This is a team that can make another deep run in the tournament. Now, I still think, like I said, this doesn't hurt them completely because you still get Wagner back, and you can still have those grad transfers coming in. So depending on how some of your younger underclassmen does, like your freshmen, and also what Duncan Robinson can do, because I think he can see his minutes decrease due to Wagner and Wilson's development. So with Wilson gone, I think you can see Duncan Robinson's minutes increase again, see him have a more prominent role in the lineup. So it'll be very interesting to see. Now I hope that the fall off like they did after the 2014 season, where it took a couple of years for the program to get back together. I hope it's more close to the 2013-14 season, where I don't think I'm not predicting Big Ten title, but I'm predicting hopefully with all the ducks lined up in a row, they could have a nice run in March.
Yeah, they could. We'll have to see what happens. And then we go to the controversial topic involving Michigan football.
Touchdown, Michigan!
My goodness. Former San Francisco 49er running back and former New York Giants running back as well, Brandon Jacobs, just last night, he threatened to expose Michigan Wolverines football head coach Jim Harbaugh and try to get him fired on Twitter. He, let me pull up the article real quick. Jacob said, "Let's be real," quote, "let's be real. They had great assistant coaches, but Jim didn't know what he was doing. Jim had no idea. Jim is throwing slants into cover two safeties, getting people hurt. That guy knew nothing, man," quote. But he didn't say any. But it's not like he said Jim Harbaugh doesn't know anything about football.
I know that's probably not what he meant, but still, the words came out of his mouth, and you can tell he was all up in his feelings when he said it. So, yeah, he didn't know anything. He might have done this and that, but guess what? Under his leadership, he got y'all to 3 straight NFC title games. He still got y'all to a Super Bowl. He still almost got you to a Super Bowl with Alex Smith as your starting quarterback. Could have gotten, like I said, in any of 3, he could have gotten you to 3 straight Super Bowls. Had it not been for a muff punt and a last-second interception in the end zone. So, and in that Super Bowl, you could say, hey, they probably should have won that one because there was a missed call on a 4th down in the end zone. So, I don't know what else you could say. We've seen the success he's done, not just at Michigan, but also before in the NFL of San Francisco. What else even back then to that was Stanford. So to say that Jim Harbaugh didn't know anything or you did this or mismatched schemes or whatnot, it's bullshit. It really is. And Brandon Jacobs, there's a reason why in fact, there's even a reason why I really have very little respect for his thoughts on this, because even after he sent up a tweet about how, when I'm done with what I got to do, Harbaugh he'll be done, Michigan will fire him. Then he deletes the tweet. So either you are lying, or you're trying to be a tough guy and can't back up the shit you're saying.
Well, his comments about Jim is throwing slants into cover 2 safeties, I mean, I guess it would relate somehow in a thread and needle fashion, a small thread and needle fashion to the Peru Bowl.
That's why we have offensive coordinators. That's why we have offensive coordinators. That's why we have folks and players that can call audible. If they don't like it, call a fucking audible.
Right.
Not that drastic or difficult to comprehend.
Yep. So there's that. And
I mean, I know if we're going to talk about it, like Harbaugh at least responded back to it with terms of but all bitterness and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you along with all malice. So he's basically telling him to, he's not telling him get over. He's just saying, hey, don't be bitter and salty that things might not have worked out the way because, basically don't be bitter and salty. Try to find a better perspective and could always be worse than where they are right now. But like I said, they went to 3 straight NFC title games in the very next year because, remember, the 49ers management, because they're such dunderheads, they decided they didn't want to work things out with Harbaugh, basically expediting him wanting to go back to Michigan. Now, obviously, it was a luck of the draw, a public alignment of the planets type of thing, with David Brandon being fired, and then obviously Brady Hoke was going to be let go regardless. But still, the 49ers did not help themselves as well with their handling of Harbaugh's situation. So if Brandon Jacobs wants to be pissed at anybody, be pissed at the Yorks. Be pissed at the management for letting this great coach go. Not the coach himself.
right. Now, my other co-hosts on Talk Show were trying to tell us that some of this news actually related to the Peru ball situation with that article that Jeff Moss wrote. What was Jim Harbaugh thinking? Meaning players were wearing no protective padding whatsoever in a location in Peru during camp. And a few players have suffered some bloody lips, or they might have got hurt anyway. Somehow.
You're going to get scraped up regardless. Now, obviously, in a less joking sense of fashion, obviously, I don't agree with that at all. I think that was completely reckless. Even I commented on it when Mark posted it. I'll comment on it here again. That's something you just don't do, especially nowadays when so much attention is being paid to head safety and protecting the brand at any and all costs. Very reckless thing for him to do. Now, again, I'm not a Harbaugh slap, but ever since that article dropped, we haven't heard any reports of him doing any type of scrimmages or scrums that even resembles Peru ball. Am I correct? Even when they went to Italy, I didn't hear anything about Peru ball being, leaked out the back door.
Mm-hmm.
So I would safe to assume he learned his lesson on that end. But even still, I know that we should take things a little bit seriously, but remember, the only reason that Michigan got sanctions in the first place from the NCAA was because Michael Rosenberg wanted to lead, and as well as Mark Snyder wanted to lead a witch hunt against Rich Rodriguez over stretching time after practice. So, color me dubious to something like that. Unless something major happens like that, where something much more serious than that, yeah, I'll take it for what it's worth. Aside from what we already know, that what's been reported, doubt anything that severe has already been happening underneath the university's nose that they wouldn't know about in some form or fashion, no matter what control Harbaugh might have. These are still players. These are still college kids. And I'm sure Harbaugh is doing the best that he can to make sure that they're well taken care of. That's my view.
All right. I guess we cleared that up real nicely, didn't we?
I would say so.
Yep. So, onward we go to pro football and the Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Lions head coach Jim Caldwell says the team will try to work out their relationship with former Lions wide receiver Calvin Megatron Johnson. Now, Calvin Johnson was rightfully showing his displeasure with how the Lions treated him, and that, which is one reason why he retired. The other reason why he was hurt. So that's two reasons why. And Calvin Johnson. That other note that I forgot. He was I forgot about that, but anyway, they were going to try to work out their relationship with him in some way. That's another one of our 5 questions here. It may be a teasing question, but we don't even know how they're gonna work it out. That's the point.
I mean, remember they did something like this to Barry Sanders before, so it doesn't surprise me they're doing the same, putting the screws to Calvin in the sense they did to Barry. Wouldn't be surprised if it did. Right? Doesn't surprise me that they're doing it to Calvin.
Mm-hmm. And then the Lions have signed a running back, a former Minnesota Viking running back, Matt Asiata. They have agreed to a 1-year deal, so that means they got to cut somebody come the end of training camp. The possible cut is Theo Riddick by a landslide, according to Buck Gino, one of my co-hosts on Talk Shoe.
No, I could see Theo staying out of the facility, especially with him catching passes out of the backfield. He was almost probably, you could probably start to say he was at his best doing that for the team last year until he got hurt. So I would keep him on. I would keep Amir Abdullah up for obvious reasons. His speed, his athleticism makes him a dangerous weapon every single time he touches the ball. And you know what? I'll even keep Zach Center because you saw what he did against Dallas and against Green Bay. Hell, even in the playoff game against Seattle, he knows how to find holes. He knows how to get yards, and he's a tough snapper. The one player I would be concerned about would be, if I was a player, if I was a running back, I would be concerned, it would be Dwayne Washington. He seems to be the most expendable out of the bunch, especially now that Asiata is on the team. So I could see them parting ways with Dwayne Washington. Now, don't get me wrong, he could have a hell of a training camp in preseason. Remember, he had that 95-yard return in the preseason last year. He even had a long rushing touchdown against the Bills in that same preseason as well. So even if, things don't work out with him in Detroit, I'm pretty sure he can scoop him up. They see, he's got good wheels. He can run routes well, and could have him either on kickoffs or even screenplays out the backfield, something to that effect. Even if the point is, if he doesn't make it this way, I think there's still a place in the NFL for Dwayne Washington no matter what. I just think his tenure was put on notice, so to speak, when, like I said, when this transaction happened with bringing Asiata here.
It could be key. It possibly is key, actually. So,
yeah, and by the way, before we move on to that, I want to say on the deal itself, I like it because you want to bolster up your running game as much as possible. Having a back like Asiata, in addition to your rotation of backs and a much improved offensive line, that's essentially the key formula that you need to not only improve your running game, but also take the pressure off Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
Give him help every once in a while from his offense so he doesn't have to shoulder the whole damn load like he did last year.
Sounds logical. So, that's football. We're going to transition to hockey. The Red Wings have signed yet another Czech Republic player, a defenseman Libor Sulak. They previously signed Czech standout goaltender Matej Machovsky. So that makes 2 Czech Republic players that the Red Wings have signed recently, like 2 of the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think they're trying to go a little outside the box here with those 2 moves.
I guess they're trying to make their new 21st century stable corp instead of Russians, make it be Czechs.
Maybe. And then you get the Grand Rapids Griffins. They just eliminated the San Jose Barracuda in 5 games.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, first they swept the Milwaukee Admirals in 3, then they eliminated the Chicago Wolves in 5 in the second round. And now the San Jose Barracuda in 5 games. They rematch with the Syracuse Crunch in the 2017 Calder Cup Finals. Previously in 2013, the Griffins almost swept them. They ended up beating them in 6 to get their first ever Calder Cup. The first 2 games were in Syracuse. The first 2, in 2013. The first 2 games this year will be in Grand Rapids. The Grand Rapids Griffins had to humiliate the San Jose Barracuda. That's key to their. That's what I've been pointing out. Key to their success. The only problem that they had all season is trying to stay out of the penalty box. They committed a lot of penalties throughout the season, throughout a lot of games, but their penalty killing unit keeps bailing them out really nicely, and that's why. But it is detrimental to keep them from having as many scoring chances as they need to have. So watch out for that. So please stay out of the penalty box as best you can. And I think the last game, Game 5, they didn't commit too many penalties, and that's good. They need to keep laying off. That's going to be key against the Crunch in the Calder Cup Final. All games in the Calder Cup Finals will be at 7 o'clock. Games 1 and 2 at Van Andel Arena and GR Friday and Saturday on ESPN 961. All Griffins playoff games are aired on ESPN 961, WMAX in Holland and Grand Rapids, the home of Greg, Drew, and Jim. Weekdays 3 to 6.
Look on.
Yep. And now those are all the topics that we've covered. Now it's time for our usual segment, the 5 questions segment. Are you ready, Ed?
Yes, sir. Let him rip.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Question number 1. Will the Tigers stay under 500 after the end of the month of June and start selling?
Stay under 500. I can see that being a possibility. Start selling. I still don't know. I think they would still fire. If that's the case, they would probably fire Ausmus first. And remember when they tried this before in the offseason, nobody, they didn't really get anything like what the most significant name they traded was Cameron Maiden. They couldn't get any offers for JD Martinez or Ian Kinsler. So I doubt that's going to happen again this time around, especially when the team is even worse than where they were last year. So the first part, like firing Ausmus, yeah, I can see happening. The second part, conducting the fire sale now, I think it's going to be tougher to do now than it was last year.
Hopefully you're right on the Ausmus firing.
Next question.
Question number 2. How long will it take before Tyler Collins is removed from the Tigers roster since they designated him for assignment?
It depends, because these can always be tricky. I wouldn't be surprised if, again, nobody picks him up and then he finds his way back on to the minor league roster again. So I really feel a pick gun in my head. What? He stays on for another month or something like that at most, and then they just finally cut his ass loose. That's my prediction, but it's not a one I feel confident in.
I think it's more accurate.
Next question.
Question number 3. Will the Lions talk Calvin Johnson out of retirement?
Out of retirement? No. Calvin is I believe Calvin when he says that, he's done with golf, right? And I think it's the smart move too, because you never know. If, let's say, he may physically be able to give it one more go or anything like that, but who's to say, first few games or something, or at any point during that season, he suffers a real bad catastrophic injury. Then people will come out of the world saying, you shouldn't have come back, you shouldn't have come back. So that's always the risk that's there. Not to mention, he's probably, not, obviously, it's known he is not happy with the organization at all right now. So even if you were to come back, I doubt it'd be for the Lions. I really doubt it. So put me as no as the answer to that question. Or a hell no to be more accurate.
Yeah, I think that confirms everyone's thoughts.
Next question.
So we cover that base. Question number 4, and I'm going to go deeper on this one. Will Brandon Jacobs still expose Jim Harbaugh about his Peru ball situation despite deleting his tweets about it, even though he was not speaking truthfully?
I say no, because we don't even know what the hell Brandon Jacobs was talking about. It may have been something to do with an issue completely unrelated to Peru ball. Might have been something more internal with the 49ers organization. We just don't know. All the stranger things, but like I said, him deleting his tweets casts a big shadow of doubt on his claims and his accusations. If you wanted people to believe you with what you're alleging someone is capable of doing, or not alleging, so saying you have proof or evidence that may get this person fired, you don't say that and then immediately delete the damn tweet.
Right. Keep them on there and then prove it.
The public perception of you.
Yeah.
So he thinks he's sunk his own case before he even gets started. Fucking idiot.
Right. But that's why we keep our eyes on things nonetheless.
Yeah, you do, but he made himself look worse than what he did before he opened his damn mouth.
Yeah, sorry for me to say, but it's actually what you're saying is right. I think Michigan Wolverine fans actually had a point too.
Next question.
And question number 5, how will the Michigan Wolverines men's basketball team fare with Moe Wagner staying on their team and without DJ Wilson due to his stay in the NBA draft?
Not having Wilson back, I think will hurt a little bit. You may see a little bit of a drop back, in terms of instead of improvement. Having Wagner back does help. Like I mentioned before, you got grad transfers. You also got Duncan Robinson, Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman as well. So they gained that experience as well. So I think, like I said, it would have been, if they'd gotten both guys back, it would have been a holy crap, let's make a run for a Final Four. Now it's, you temper your excitement at the very least. I don't know if they're going to have to go through another plane crash scare again to win another Big Ten tournament title. But I was hoping at the very least they don't do worse than what they were doing in 2015 and 2016 before this season transpired.
That is our 5 questions segment for all the listeners and fans out there. If you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That is episode 266. I'll call that a Memorial Day edition last minute here. Before we sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well, because I want them to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET, at Sports Radio Det. and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section, or email its owner, Roger Castillo, at rogcast81@gmail.com. Also, like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcast available on iTunes and Podbean. Ed, great discussion, great episode. Let's do this again on episode 267 next week.
Absolutely, Taylor. Looking forward to it. Again, enjoy Memorial Day and happy Memorial Day to all the listeners again.
Yep. Thanks very much. Happy Memorial Day to you as well. I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips and follow Ed Smith at EdSmith313. And like the Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join its Facebook group. We'll talk to you next week on episode 267. Thanks very much for listening and downloading TTFN. Ta-ta for now.
Bon appetit.